Well, hey, it's another sail on Tally Ho. It's a Tuesday, August 29th, I believe. Um, Came out to the marina after work today. It was supposed to be a west wind day, 12 knots or so. Um, when I got out to the marina, the winds were very light. I wasn't even sure I would have enough wind to sail, but I decided to head out and see what the conditions were like. I immediately put up all my sails as I left the marina. And I wasn't out very long before a north wind came blowing down the lake, a very stiff 25 knots of wind, and laid Tally Ho over on her side. I was able to get the boat under control, double reef the jib, drop the main. Um, Unfortunately, I didn't have much time to film anything while that was happening. But once I got the boat under control, I decided I could probably still do a little bit of a sail and see what the conditions were like. I was very worried about waves. The waves were building 2 to 4 feet pretty early in my sail, and I grabbed my phone and just happened to look to make sure I wasn't this what wind wasn't from a thunderstorm or something, and I saw a small craft advisory um, announcing urgently that there was a very strong wind coming down from the north, and that waves at the south end of the lake would be building throughout the evening as high as 8 feet. So I wanted to keep a close eye on that, but I decided I could probably do a 10-mile sail in these conditions as long as things didn't deteriorate uh, any more. So Tally Ho, with a double reef jib, was sailing pretty fast in these conditions. Again, 2 to 4 foot waves. Um, Nothing, nothing too alarming as far as I was concerned. Um, Tally Ho handled it probably better than I did. Um, the only thing that concerned me was if this north wind continued, it could make, you can see there, 24 knots of wind, and that was pretty consistent. Occasional gusts even higher. Um, but I was concerned that docking might be a challenge tonight when I got back if I had a really strong north wind. That is a crosswind in my slip, and the north wind would blow me into my neighbor's boat if I wasn't real careful. So that was on my mind as I sailed east in this north wind, just trying to put a 10-mile sail under the keel. After I tacked, the winds actually seemed like they were a little bit lighter, and I don't know, they were reading about 15 to 17 knots, and it was a good point of sail. Tally Ho continued to now head west back towards the marina in this wind. Gave me a chance to put the autopilot on, put a few things away, like my right angle drill there that was out in the cockpit, and try to take a little more video. The autopilot did fine in these conditions. Did steer a lot because of the bouncy waves, but other than that, she handled it just fine. I was thinking to myself that maybe the winds were going to ease up a bit since they were a little bit lighter, headed back west. Didn't last long. The closer I got to the marina, the more the winds continued to build back to that 20 plus knot wind. I did put a life jacket on just before I tacked. I did have to run up on the cabin top once to stuff the sail in the mainsail in the bag, and I was a little worried about falling off. um, at one point, I really wanted to try to show the waves that continue to build, and now they're probably 6 foot, 4 to 6 foot, I'd say. But it just very very hard to capture the height and the depth of the waves on film. I thought maybe looking back behind me, and if the waves were curling and cresting, we could see that. But no, it just kind of creates a slick behind the boat, really, and you don't see much of the wave. and they weren't breaking waves per se, so you don't really see a whole lot there. Um, Rest assured, they were every bit of 2 to 4, occasionally 6 foot waves. Tally Ho continued to move right along though, and even with autopilot steering, we were bashing our way through. You can see the waves on the leeward side of the boat there, and we'd rise up and then come down into the trough and see the waves kind of splash out from there. They weren't breaking over the boat really, but at one point coming up here pretty soon, you're going to see a one wave that definitely sprayed all over the boat. It's just so hard to get um, capture the depth and the height of the waves here. You get an idea though of the movement of the boat. We're heeled over at some points here 30 degrees. Um, as the wind continued to blow harder and harder as we made our way back west towards the marina. There wasn't another boat out that night, that's for sure. I think the small craft advisory scared a lot of people from being out, but it was a good sailing night if you could reduce your sail. I had the companionway closed earlier in this sail, and I had to go down and put some stuff away. I must have left it open. And pretty soon here, you're going to see this wave spray all over the boat. But no harm done. It was fine. I'm still thinking. There's that big wave splash. I'm still thinking about how I'm going to dock. Normally, I'm out on Wednesday nights, but Wednesday's forecast was worse than tonight's, and so I switched to Tuesday. Unfortunately, most of the folks that hang out on the dock are there on Wednesday nights, and when I left, there wasn't anybody around, so I knew I wasn't going to have any help docking. Usually, somebody will grab a dock line and give me a hand, but didn't think that was going to happen tonight. I plan to put an extra fender or two out on the starboard side just in case something happened and I drifted over towards my neighbor's boat. Don't ever want to hit anybody, but certainly would like a fender between us if we did. Um, so as we approach the marina here, the winds continued to be very strong in the 20 knot plus wind, but it did clock around a little bit. So it was more of a northeast wind or an east northeast wind, and that made me feel a little bit better. Um, Coming into my slip in a straight north wind is difficult. My bow of my boat definitely blows sideways in those conditions. But a northeast, east northeast would make that a little less troublesome. So at this point, I decided not to even put out the extra fenders. Um, it just felt like I could probably angle the boat into the wind a bit on my approach, and then get my loop line, which is a critical part of my docking procedure. I keep a loop at the end of my finger pier on a shepherd's hook. And if I get that loop over a cabin top winch, then I'm pretty much golden. I can dock the boat no problem. Really just power into onto that rope like a spring line, and it'll pull me over to the finger pier. The problem is if you miss it or you are blown off of the finger pier before you get that line, then you got problems. But at this point, I'm feeling a little more confident that I'm going to be able to get my loop line and and get my boat docked without bumping into my neighbor. The waves aren't as bad here because we're protected by the steel mill, but the wind is still blowing very strong at 20 plus knots. 22 knots. Well, I didn't have the ability to tape my docking, but we're in safe and sound now. As you can see, Tally-ho did fine. We did not really have any trouble docking. The winds were a bit northeast, and that allowed me to get the bow in there and quickly got the loop line on and was able to motor into it without any trouble. Boat looks a little wiped out though. You see a lot of stuff strewn around, and that's because we were on some pretty tough beats both directions, and a lot of things were flying around. There's my cabin top winch, and you can see my loop line in the background there. And that's essentially how I dock tally ho. Uh, it also helps me get out of the slip on a north wind day. I had a lot of difficulty in getting the lines cast off before the boat would blow sideways in a north wind. And with my loop line, I can put the boat in forward. It keeps me pulled up tight against the finger pier. I can cast off all the lines, and then when I'm ready, put her in reverse, back out quickly, and put my loop back on the shepherd's hook as I back out. So it was a good sail tonight. A little bit crazy out there. I got 10 miles or so under the keel, and we hit a much faster top speed than I thought. We must have been coasting down some waves along the way, but I think it read 8.2 knots as our top speed, and it was really a fun sail. Tally ho continues to impress me.